In a small village called Blackwood Hollow, covered in fog and surrounded by a dark forest, people whispered about witches. The villagers feared the woods because they believed a powerful witch named Elara lived there. They said she had made a deal with dark forces, giving her magical powers at a terrible cost. One chilly autumn evening, a curious girl named Clara decided to explore the forest. She loved the stories about magic and wanted to learn the truth. Even though she had been told to stay away, the tales only made her more eager to go. As she walked deeper into the woods, the trees seemed to close in around her, their twisted branches reaching out like clawed hands. When dusk fell, Clara found a clearing lit by the eerie glow of the moon. In the center stood a rundown cottage, its windows cracked and covered in vines. The air smelled damp and old. Despite her fears, Clara felt drawn to the cottage. She knocked on the door. To her surprise, the door creaked open, revealing Elara. The witch was both beautiful and frightening. Her long, silver hair flowed like smoke, and her eyes shone with an unnatural light. "Welcome, dear child," she said, her voice smooth but unsettling. "I've been waiting for you." Clara, both fascinated and scared, stepped inside. The cottage was filled with strange items, bubbling potions, dried herbs, and ancient books filled with spells. Elara invited her closer and began to teach her magic, promising Clara great power if she dared to learn. Clara listened closely, forgetting all the warnings from her village. Days turned into weeks as Clara visited the witch, learning spells and enchantments. With each lesson, she felt stronger, but she also noticed strange changes around her. Animals in the forest grew wary of her, and whispers seemed to follow her every move, as if the trees were aware of her dealings with the witch. One night, Clara returned to the cottage, eager to show her skills. But when she arrived, the air felt heavy with tension. Elara's expression had changed. There was darkness in her eyes. "You've grown strong, Clara," she said, her voice low. "But power comes with a price. You must sacrifice something dear to you." Clara's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "You must give a piece of your soul," Elara replied, her gaze piercing. "In return, you will gain the strength to rule over those who once feared you." Clara hesitated. She thought of her family, her friends, and the warmth of her village. She couldn't bear to lose them, but the temptation of power was overwhelming. In that moment of weakness, she agreed, believing she could control it. As the ritual began, darkness consumed Clara. Shadows swirled around her, and she could hear the cries of her loved ones echoing in her mind. "No," she screamed, but it was too late. The sacrifice was made, and a piece of her soul was ripped away, leaving a hollow ache in its place. With her newfound powers, Clara returned to Blackwood Hollow, commanding respect and fear. But the cost weighed heavily on her heart. She felt her connection to her family slipping away, as if a wall had risen between them. The villagers, once her friends, now feared her. As weeks passed, Clara's power grew, but so did her loneliness. The shadows of the forest seemed to whisper her name, and she felt Elara's influence lingering over her. One stormy night, unable to bear the isolation, Clara returned to the witch's cottage, desperate for answers. Elara waited for her with a sinister smile. "You've embraced the darkness, dear Clara, but it will never be enough. You must take another life to keep your power." Clara recoiled. "I can't do that. I won't." The witch's laughter echoed in the cottage. "You have no choice. You are bound to me now." In that moment, Clara realized the true horror of her situation. She had become what she feared, a monster, a witch herself. Driven by desperation, she fled the cottage and ran deep into the woods, the darkness closing in around her. But the forest was no longer her safe place. As she stumbled through the trees, she felt the villagers watching her from the shadows. They knew about her transformation and believed she was now Elara's puppet, cursed to serve the witch forever. In a panic, Clara sought refuge at the edge of the village. As she reached the clearing, the villagers surrounded her, torches in hand. "You are not one of us anymore," they shouted, their voices a mix of fear and anger. Realizing she had lost everything, Clara fought back with her dark powers, unleashing the very magic that had bound her. But in that moment of rage, she felt the witch take control. Clara was trapped inside her own body, unable to stop Elara's dark influence from hurting the villagers. In the end, as the sun rose over Blackwood Hollow, the villagers disappeared, leaving only whispers in the wind. The cottage stood abandoned, but Clara remained a prisoner of her own making, a lost soul wandering the forest, forever haunted by her choices. And somewhere deep in the woods, Elara watched with a knowing smile, waiting for the next curious soul to wander into her grasp.